Name is Doug Nelson. I'm principal here at Wootton High School. Thank you so much for joining us this morning for our last principal coffee chat of the year. I appreciate those of you who've been with me for a number, if not all, of our coffee chats this year. And I see some familiar names who are joining us this morning. If this is your first time, just a little note about the framing and how this works. The PTSA always puts out a request for any questions in advance of a coffee chat. And this time we had 6 questions submitted in advance. So I've had an opportunity to take a look at those questions and prepare some responses to them. So we're going to begin with the questions that were submitted in advance. And once we've had a chance to talk through those questions, then we will move to an open forum where if you would like to come off mute and ask a question directly, or if you would like to submit a question in the chat, I will monitor that as well. And we will share those questions. And we're going to spend time together kind of discussing those until it feels kind of like we've gotten through some of the questions that are out there. And then we wrap up. So before we get started into the formal questions that were submitted in advance, just to provide everyone a little update, it's been, of course, an extremely busy time. I affectionately call this period of time at schools the gauntlet. And that is because there's something happening just about every moment along the way, whether it is AP testing, and we're really starting to wrap that up at this point in time, or whether it's scores of events that happen at the end of the year. But all of them, why I talk about it affectionately, is they feel so celebratory. So just this week alone, we had a Festival of the Arts in which we had an art installation at school. We had a wonderful fashion show take place. We saw some original performances take place from the theater program. We had amazing concerts that took place. I don't know if you were with me last night for the performance by the music ensembles, the band and orchestra, and it was just spectacular, ending with like playing some music from the movie E.T. It was just great. It took me back. But it also has been wonderful seeing so many of our seniors celebrated with scholarships and awards that they have worked diligently and put in so much effort in order to earn those, whether that was at our awards night or the superintendent's fine arts celebration, or many other places in which our students have been honored. So it is, while a tiring time at Wootton, it certainly is an exciting one. So I just wanted to share some of the good news and how we have been celebrating. And tonight, we're going to celebrate our seniors one more time. They are going to have their prom at Pinstripe. So I can't wait to see everybody there. All right, so let's go ahead and kick it off. We'll start with some of our questions and we'll go right in order today. So the first question, what was the decision-making process to keep kids in school on April 23rd when there was a bomb threat that was made? There are some additional questions. I'm going to share all of those in order and then answer this question, but I also want to give context to everyone. So on April 23rd, we did receive a police response to the school, a little bit different of a bomb threat. So they arrived to tell us that a threat has been made of the school. And then on April 23rd, we have a different response, and I'll explain that in just a moment. But in case you didn't know, that was kind of what this question is in reference to. And then this question continues, and the expected communication from the school. It says it is not acceptable to only inform us when there was a bomb threat and say that classes and activities will continue inside. Parents wonder why. If the threat was deemed not credible right away, we need to know to understand our kids are locked in but not in danger. And if they were investigating and concluding it was a non-credible threat after half an hour, then why the kids were inside. So we'll unpack that a little bit. So the decision-making process, I will start with that. In advance of this specific bomb threat, principals received an update, and it was an update to let us know in a direction that we were moving, although it was not kind of formalized or communicated with the community yet. What I learned as a principal was that we have studied bomb threats, and there have been plenty of them, not only for Wootton, but in other schools. And then MCPS Safety and Security took a broader look to actually determine when threats are coming into school, what is the outcome, and what are the data really showing us? And what it shows us is that the vast, vast majority, and all of them in MCPS, have been threats called in with a seeming intention to disrupt and not actual credible harm. Nothing results from them. And so principals were informed in March that based on situational awareness and a specific criteria that we have to use, we now can take a look at whether, and this is not just a school-based decision, we collaborate with the police and with our support from safety and security to determine whether it makes more sense based upon the flow of information to shelter in place. I just want to start with my personal opinion on that. And as someone who is now an incident commander as a principal, but before that, I was an assistant principal who oftentimes was overseeing the safety plan at schools. I think that this makes a lot of sense. And so shelter in place means you place heightened control. Heightened control is a really good place to be, that as you're really taking a look at what is the information flow to you, how are phone calls or threats even made, what did the police know about it, if anything, and then they are able to share with you. And you can start to see situationally whether things seem to make sense, whether this feels like a really heavy threat. And when you are in shelter in place, you are now in a better position to do both things, which is stay put because you feel that you are going to this non-credible place, or now we realize, yeah, this feels credible. So now we are evacuating. That's actually a better place to move to evacuation from than when we are just in normal operation, when you surprise people. I want you all to know we are prepared to do all of those based on the flow of information. But the third bomb threat that we got was very out of the box. The police arrived to us. It was not called to us. They received the information at the police station. It's a very interesting way to make a bomb threat. The police are also aware. We were not initially, but multiple schools had received them all through the police who came to us. And so I really feel in those circumstances, what you were taking a look at, it made a lot of sense to shelter. And then when we're taking a look at it and unpacking it afterwards, yes, I believe that that was the right call. So I really would like for you all as community members to walk away with the following. This is now an option. It is not a one and done thing that anytime a bomb threat comes in, we do the same thing every single time. So we might still evacuate. We may shelter based on what is in front of us. And when it comes to communication, I also want to speak to that. I understand, and I know that the need to get communication out to parents is absolutely necessary. We have so much by way of structures and the way that we move on communication that has shifted and improved here. But in the end, where it all starts is we must manage the immediate incident in front of us, no questions asked. And as soon as we get through that, as incident commander, I then am going to move someone to begin to communicate what individuals need to know. The truth of the matter is, you as parents may then hear from your child, right, who likely does not have a lot of information, that they are worried and concerned. You've got to trust that we are moving to address the incident, and that as quickly as we can turn around communication, and that is through Remind, we're going to start letting you know initial information about what we know in the school building, right? So what I want to say about all of that is I don't think that there is an emergency response in which communication immediately meets everyone's needs, because what is really necessary is immediate communication. And yet we have to do something else that is a higher priority. So we have got to accept that. What we are going to do, and I want to reassure you, is communicate as soon as we can that we have this information. Let me see if there's any part of this that I did not address. Just underscore part of the question. Yes, the threat was deemed not credible in this case, our third bomb threat. Actually, all of our bomb threats have been deemed not credible. Yes, I think I got to all parts of that question. Okay. Let's take a look at question number 2, and we can revisit anything that you would like me to go further on question number 1, because I do know that this is, of course, top of mind for many. This same question, what's your opinion about why our school received 3 bomb threats so far this school year? Are they related? Other schools in the district county are not subject to these threats as our school is, and why do you think it is happening? So I will give you my honest opinion on this. I don't know if this is necessarily MCPS. This is my principal opinion as someone who has really been a part of managing this. One thing I can say factually is I do not believe that our bomb threats they are not connected. They are disparate from one another. The first one in the investigation, it showed us that we actually had a student at school who was addressed and was a part of setting up a threat that then came into the school. The second one is completely dissimilar. and actually a circumstance I've never encountered as an administrator before. The investigation shows on bomb threat number 2, and even the way that that was called in was also very dissimilar from the other threats. It was made from out of the country. It was called into us from somewhere in Canada. And so it is my understanding as principal that the police, that they can only follow up in certain ways to have that addressed. And so they did. But I can't even be from a foreign country. But we did. And then the third one is, this one was an individual, it was reported in the media. The individual that called in multiple threats across multiple school districts. That was Montgomery County, Howard County, and Prince George's County. We were one of the selected schools in the threat, and the individual called that in, and they identified who that was. And that was an individual at a specific facility that called that in. So the police were able to follow up with that. I do not believe that those connect. I don't have exact reasons why the threats were made. I do personally wonder if because our school sometimes carries a headline, that then that results in someone being top of mind, that then they select to make a threat. What I do believe that unites all the bomb threats is that individuals are out there that want to disrupt. I believe that the intention of making the threat to the school is to stop the normal operation and force the school to do something that just kind of shuts down what we would normally do, which is invite your children in to go to school, learn in their classes, go to extracurricular activities, and I hope have a really nice, fun day. Someone wants to disrupt that. So what is my opinion? Those are my opinions about the bomb threat. Why do I think it is still happening is because there's a headline, and I think that that is a way for individuals to get attention that for whatever reason they seek. Question number 3. This is about locking our doors. This is an important one. So locking all doors at 7:45 seems like a good measure. And just so everyone is aware, at 7:45, any high school across all of MCPS, everything locks at 7:45 a.m. Unless like someone's standing at the door and they're like letting the last students in, and then the next thing they're going to do is lock. But 7:45 is when this happens. And it is fair for those who are late to report to the front door. That is true. However, during midday and lunch hours, all doors seem flexibly open, and the cafeteria bottom doors, they are open as well. How do you ensure safety, and anything school did to talk to kids about okay, this is a separate question. So, and any school, what we did to talk to the school about the shooter police report, kids seem to just read the full report. So let's separate those out. Let's start with the doors. Doors are an important one. As I said at the PTSA meeting on Tuesday, we talked about this as well. This is what I need from everybody when it comes to doors. We communicate that they need to stay locked. They are monitored. And there is always roving security and different systems in place to make sure we have an eye on the door. All doors also have a camera. What we also need is the support of everyone to know the message around doors, which is, wow, it is convenient, even if you know that your friend is on the other side of that door, to open the door. You should not do that, because anyone can simply come to the front door where then someone is actually buzzed in. There are eyes on that individual, and the person who enters through the front door enters to a vestibule, which is a controlled space. What should not be happening is the doors are just open to individuals when they are supposed to be locked. And all of our exterior doors, they do stay locked. There's one in this question about the cafeteria door. So the cafeteria door, only during lunch, one door goes open for individuals that want to grab their lunch and then go right outside the door to sit with their friends and eat outside. And the reason that that happens is that the cafeteria always has a security assistant in that space near that door who can monitor and pay attention to what is going on. So one door does go open. All the other doors do stay locked. So if you are someone who goes out to have your lunch and you sit out with your friends, let's say near the stadium, when you come back in, you should enter through the main doors of the building. You should come to the front door and be buzzed to come back in. If that is a challenge for you, you should stay inside the building. And so all of those things are in place. If we see where we have a specific area in which that's not really working, what I want you all to know the internal process is we look at that during operations team meeting, which happens weekly Tuesday morning. And so we go over the logistics, we figure out what we need to do if there is an issue. For example, if we hear from teachers in the back of the building, like the back door is going open, students are opening that this period of time, we work with security, we come up with a plan, and we work on addressing that because it shouldn't happen. So doors are an issue. They are hard to manage. There are systems in place so that they are monitored, right? But one thing I also want to be really clear about the topic of lunch is I've gotten some questions about this, and it's embedded in this question. Lunch is a different the school functions differently during lunch. And so we are a school in which we have an open building and a closed campus. You may not leave campus, and students who do that without permission, we investigate, we address. But everyone who stays on campus may freely move throughout the building, which is a less structured time. So we have to accept that. That is the way that the school, so individuals ask, arguably it is not as safe a time as when the school was in normal function. But that is the school and what we do. And when you talk with our students, they want that ability to move around lunch, and I see its benefit. But what we have to accept is then we have to function differently when we restructure the building like that. And so everyone has assigned locations. Those assigned locations, sometimes you are in a space for monitoring, or you are in a movable location. You move throughout the campus in order to see like what is happening, where are students, what do we need to pay attention to. So please know that there are systems in place during lunch. The second part of this is anything shared with students about the shooter police report. They received communication as everyone else did. And I want what you all to know is that there was a support plan in place after the press conference and subsequent announcement about the manifesto press conference. I am aware that students did receive parts of that. I understand that some students were reading. When I hear things like that, it's not really something you can control at the school level, but what we can do is support. And so there were actually targeted groups in the building. When I say targeted groups from central office, that were here to create spaces based upon what students needed. And so there were a number of different things that we felt emotionally students might need support from adults. So whether that was how the counseling services was making themselves available, or how we were creating space for students that were maybe just scared or unnerved, or students that were just worried based upon some of we created very different spaces and then used central office support based on individuals' expertise to create those spaces. And I am aware that that plan was in place. So communication, maybe not so much. Everyone got the same thing there. But what I want you to know is we did then very much tailor the support plan on the other side to make sure individuals were supported well if they were concerned about what had been shared. And kids just seemed to read the full report without any further communication inside the school. So that, again, we did not communicate specifically about the report. The report actually has never really been shared even with me. So I would just share that would be a challenge for us to communicate on something that we do not actually even have. Our fourth question today. At the PTSA meeting last night, someone mentioned that the school doesn't do dances anymore, which I hadn't noticed because my child is a freshman. Can you talk about why and what the policy expectations will be moving forward? So we do not have a policy regarding dances. So a dance is something that is either sponsored or not sponsored. And that generally is by a specific group that has a sponsor, such as a class, or let's say a group such as SGA. But I want to be upfront it's not a policy change that we don't do dances anymore, but I've been kind of upfront when I came in as principal and started to kind of really go over things and analyze. One question that I have is traditions are important, and traditions, we can have an event just for tradition, but sometimes those traditions, they're there for a reason. They're helping us with something else as well. And usually dances are there because we need to make a little money on the dance because we want to do something else with it. And so I have been raising that question because dances are nowhere near as profitable at Wootton for whatever reason than they were before. My sense is that those are shifting dynamics and what the kids actually want to do. That is my sense. So I will give you a very explicit example. If Splanning, which is our senior planning class, is holding events, They are fundraising with those events in order to offset costs for graduation and for prom. Prom happens tonight. The more intentional work we do there, the cost of prom comes down for individuals when we do good work. So if Splanning were to hold a dance, and they do not, but if they were, and they need to make X amount of money, if we're not making that, it is worth raising the question, should we hold the event or should we do something different? So it's not that we're just not holding dances anymore. I do see most of our groups exploring like, well, what ideas are going to get good attendance and going to make us some money? And perhaps it's not just a school dance, but maybe you dance when you're there. And there I will share GlowCo. So that was an idea that came up. We kind of shifted the approach to what we were doing with homecoming. And to me, I just felt like the setup, you could go from a football game right into this fun activity. There was a room if you wanted to dance, but you got to do so many other things. We exponentially increased our attendance at that event, and we got to charge less to enter than homecoming the year before, and we made equivalent money. So just some ideas about what kind of where that comes from. So when it comes to dance, it's not a policy change that has shifted, but I hope I painted a bit of a picture about just the conversations we're having at the school and a little bit of what I would say is like a shifting dynamic with the groups and what they are considering and doing with their work here in the building. We're down to 2 more questions, and we're going to go into the chat and do open forum. I asked this question a few months ago, but it seems like the procedure may have changed. Are students required to attend wellness days and when there are no classes scheduled? For the wellness day on 5/23, the schedule says that students go to their first period class for 5 minutes before wellness activities. Yes. So where they'll be counted absent if they do not attend. We are taking a first period attendance in that arrival to first period. It is a school day, even if it is a wellness day. The reason for wellness is really a two-part move for us. Sometimes we're really looking at holding a wellness day because we really feel that in the right place and on the right, that gives students a break. It's a good setup. It builds community. It's all of those things. In and around testing, it's serving 2 purposes. Yeah, we hope that it is a kind of a break for students. Testing is hard. There's a lot that is happening in the month of May. We really want to create wellness spaces. The other thing is it's helping us is actually manage the logistics of testing because we have to do 2 things. We have to oversee all the testing to meet expectations of College Board and MCAP, and we still have to run the logistics of the school. So sometimes that really comes together in a way that supports us, like in May 23rd. For you all, what I want to say is on a wellness day, I think that it's really centered around students. So I would say to parents, you make the call that makes the most sense to you. Follow your kid's lead. If they feel like coming to school, watching a movie is like their cup of tea, and I've gone in and talked with those kids, they're enjoying that time with their friends. And come to a wellness day, you need to make another decision. I understand it. We do have to take a first period attendance. And so that does happen on a wellness day because we need to confirm our attendance for a day of school. And it is a day of school. Last question, and the ones that were submitted in advance. It seems that students will need to wear IDs in the fall. Will the IDs be provided with lanyards or some sort of chain? Or will parents be provided with a way for students to display their ID? So let's start with the last one. There's got to be a way for students to display their ID. To give context to everyone, a flow of information happened just this month about looking into the next school year. Principals have been informed that we will receive guidelines in July. So we don't have them yet, but they are forthcoming that explains IDs for all, and that is students and staff. So it seems that we are moving in the direction that everyone will have a school given ID. Staff already have this from MCPS. Students will receive an ID that they must then wear, and everyone should have them on every day. Again, guidelines will be coming in July. I will be prepared to communicate so that you know. And embedded in this is the question about, well, how are students going to wear them and how are we going to display them? Thank you for raising that question. We haven't gotten there yet. That puts it on my radar. We do have to have it. There needs to be clarity about how do we want students to show or display that ID so that everyone's in the know. And we actually know what we're looking for when it comes to the, so I'm going to carry that one back. So thank you very much for raising that point. So we have a couple of things in the chat. Okay, so this one is from JD. I hope it's okay that I read the question, but I might also need a little help with the comment. So this is what is written. I think that the parents' concern is the police guidance being followed? Or is that we get so many of these, let's assume it's not credible? Okay, so I'm going to try to unpack this, but please let me know if I'm going in the right direction here. So when we receive a bomb threat, we have to deem credibility. Credibility is a collaborative decision, and it's not one as a principal. I can just call it credible. I actually need the police now, having gone through the experience. We have to actually take a look at the information, and we have to determine if we feel that we are moving in that direction. And then JD, what I would share also is you can't make an all out credible or like totally deem it not credible until MCPD do their systems and actually like move throughout the building. And that's based on what information is shared with you. Okay, so that is when but again, back to my point, if we follow the data and there have been no credible threats ever made, and the setup, we have to use that situational awareness to begin to guide us in a specific way. And I do really believe safety and security, they debrief every single one of these things. They look, and this is not just Wootton, this is across all of our schools and other school systems, right? So we're going to have to follow where our experience takes us to. So yeah, that I think is what comes into this idea about whether credible or not credible. And I get the concern, right? I understand parents are going to be concerned anytime there is a threat there. I want to assure you what we're using is systems and established processes to make that determination. JD, any follow-up on that? Okay. Allie, question about the difference. So Allie, can I just confirm that you're speaking about Einstein? Is that correct?
Yes, I
Yeah.
think that, well, there were the two on the same day, right?
Yes. Well, there were, my recollection, and if I stand a little bit, it's close to 7 schools that got it that day, is my understanding.
Okay. And I get
2 in MCPS.
right. And I get why you're saying like the credible, non-credible, all that. I was just surprised within the day, given that it was viewed as non-credible, then another school made a different choice. So I guess I was just more curious about that.
Yeah, right. So, and again, I'm not Einstein, right? But
Sure. Totally
I'm
get
sure
it.
they had a different flow of information, right? So,
Totally
what
get
I
it.
can tell you is that so I feel like it's best for me to speak to what we did, and I know how we made our decision. As I shared before, I believe we made the right call. And I have felt going this year like we really need to move in this direction. So I start there. The other thing I want to say to you directly, if the conclusion in the hot wash, right? Sorry, that's the debrief process. It gets this very special name called the hot wash. If during that, the flow of information had been in debriefing it, we should have gone the other direction, I will tell you that. I can A, own it, and B, that's the importance of the debrief, is you really are trying to make your very best call. Sometimes it is, you should have gone a different direction or move. And if that's the case, I truly would have told you that because we would have learned something. But that was not where that is with our security folks and the police and all, like, we really believe we ended up in the right place. So I would just reassure you with that. And the truth is, we did a very similar threats called in a very similar way, and 2 schools did 2 different things. And I know MCPS looked at that. Okay, so this one is from Brenda. Related to the bomb threat, this is clarifying as it was the presentation made at the PTSA meeting earlier this week. The third threat caught the community more vulnerable only a few days after the police report about the student being arrested for allegedly planning a massacre. I think the first message sent to parents could have explained a little more about why kids will stay shelter in place. With that said, Mr. Nelson, I wish you didn't have to do this. Okay, well, thank you for that. It is part of my role. So a little bit about communication. I'm going to take that feedback about a little more context and kind of like take that back and look at specifically what we communicated. The one thing I do want to acknowledge up front, where we're going to start, even with the context of the manifesto and the press conference, which I absolutely agree with. We're in a very sensitive space. I was heartsick when then we faced another threat. What we do, I think, even with the sensitivity, the initial communications have got to be about the initial threat right in front of you. But I think that this is a point well taken about, well, then what is this, maybe the second level of communication when it comes, because now we feel like we've been almost hit again with the next big thing. And it is such unfortunate circumstances. So Brenda, what I would say is, I just want to elevate the point. Like, I do feel in the heat of the moment of an actual bomb threat, we've got to get to the heart of communicating just about that. And that might feel heavy, but what can we do for the second level where follow-up communication? Point well taken. And I'll carry that feedback back. So Roman, here's one. Yeah, Mr. Shapiro, we've talked about this before, the electronic absence form. So I did carry that back. I did not, and I asked my team to take a look at it, and I feel like we're in the system in place for this year because we have that as an established system. So I do not believe we're moving over to a full electric absence form in this school year. I do want you to know I raised that point, but I also kind of have to trust my team. But if you and I were to talk a little offline, I can give you a little perspective. I don't think it's totally off the table, but I can give you a little more background there. But I just want you to know for now we're holding to that. So perhaps that is in our future, but I know we're not doing that in the here and now. Here's a good question. So how do you ensure that students are not leaving school on their own during the school day? So students, they have to toe the line here. They really do. The truth of the matter is students are expected to be at school, and students need to follow the expectation of staying at school. What are some things that we do to prevent it? I'm going to tell you the thing that I do. That when I am not scheduled into something at the start of advisory, I walk out to the front of the school and I watch for that. And the question that I ask students is, and this is why it's hard, I hope this kind of edifies. I ask them why they're leaving. And most oftentimes I get an eye roll. The reason I get an eye roll is not out of disrespect. It's because I'm asking the same students over and over again who they've finished their partial schedule and are now going to their classes at MC. I'm asking them once again, to show me their schedule that they have a partial schedule. But because there's a flow of students, right, you have to do kind of similar structures in order to kind of figure that out. I'm saying that to you because things are checked, but not everyone can be everywhere at the same time, right? So this is where I would appreciate your help as a community as well. If you realize your child is taking off during the school day, I would appreciate follow-up. Or if you're someone who asks your child to always share their location and you realize someone's over at Chipotle during lunch, I don't think we have massive numbers, but I'm not sticking my head in the sand here and some students do go over there. If that's the case, I would really appreciate your support as well in trying to curb that from happening. I do not believe students should be leaving campus without permission. They must have a verified reason in order to leave. We sign students out. We make sure that we connect students with their parents if they are picking them up. But the truth is, some students do in fact leave. If it's reported to us as administration or to security, then we investigate. That's why the closed circuit TV is important. You can oftentimes see, based on a report, that a student decides to leave. And then we know it's without permission. And then we can follow up with that student. Something that would happen if you left campus without permission and we know you weren't, we then take away, let's say, a parking permit. We then restrict a student and you don't get to move openly on campus during lunch. So there are also interventions for students that leave without permission during the school day. A question about seniors. Last day for seniors is today. What happens in classes in the last 3 weeks of the year when there is a mix of students from different classes? Yes, so teachers are very prepared for this. Now, what I would recommend, I'll start with this, Carl. You'll want to follow up specifically with the teacher, but they can do a number of different things. If you're a PE class, you're going to just continue on. You just now have fewer students to, let's say, play on the soccer team than you did before because seniors have gone. If you're in a class that's maybe project-based, students might get a specific project, specifically like you see that often, for example, in AP courses that are continuing on. They will oftentimes get some content-related specific project that maybe isn't so much about like the quiz and the reading and the analyzing text. And so they'll move to another space and still continue to complete work and do things along the way. But I promise, like, Wootton is very blessed. We have a staff that have worked and oftentimes have taught courses for years and years and years. They really have their plan figured out, and our PLCs essentially know what that final project or task that students are going to do. I would also recommend that if you want to know, just communicate directly with the teacher and they can give you a sense about what is going to happen for classes now that some of our students are done and they have departed from those classes. Oh, wow. Okay. JD, I've not heard this. I've heard from my student that there is a change in policy for lunch next year. Students will be required to sit in assigned areas. Would you please clarify if this is a change in policy? I would really like to, do you mind sharing how your daughter maybe got that information? And it's okay if the answer is no. The answer to that, there's no current plan to change lunch. I feel that lunch at Wootton is actually a really nice part of the day. I think it's good for kids to just go to their space, sit in the commons. I think it's great for them to be outside. I understand it's a little less controlled, but I like to see students outside. I like to see them out on the field with their friends for a pickup game. And so, no, there is no discussion that I am aware of us putting students in assigned seat for lunch. Are there any questions out there that have still not been addressed? Give just a little moment to see if there is anything else. Okay, something in the chat. Question about bathrooms. I appreciate that because we've consistently talked through bathrooms here in the coffee chat. So what I have here, JD, is bathroom situation. So what we talked about most is whether we will have bathrooms being locked periodically. So that is in place until we move to detectors. That's been an ever-changing landscape this year. We were getting detectors, then I was concerned we were not getting detectors. The most recent flow of information to principals, again, and I've double-checked that I can share this, is detectors are back on. So my hope is that we stay with the timetable that has been put out there and that detectors will be installed in MCPS high schools. For those who do not have them, we do not have them, by November. And what I feel like we will get with the installation of detectors is then we do not have to periodically lock bathrooms to help support with our monitoring and to dissuade behaviors that shouldn't happen in a bathroom. So that is the update on that. I think we stand a chance of moving in that direction. And just two reminders, we're getting bathroom upgrades. So our auditorium bathrooms are now going to become ADA compliant, and then we're getting a new bathroom installed near the gymnasium. And that's going to be individual stall approach, like no locked doors and things like that. It's just stalls that you can walk into. And so we will see if they get vape detectors in them. But that bathroom, the one thing that we're going to get regardless of vape detectors is if you encounter a bathroom that is locked, you just walk into that one. So it just doesn't have this thing where we might have to lock down stalls if it needs to be cleaned or something needs to be addressed, but a bathroom will simply remain open. A question about construction. Great. Okay. Are they doing any work on improving the interior spaces over the summer? So the answer is yes. So the work gets started this summer, and then there is additional work the next summer. And that's a little more exterior. So this summer is focused on interior spaces. As I mentioned, we're getting a new bathroom. We will have some already existing bathrooms improved. My opinion there is it's not enough bathroom work, but I'm going to take what we can get. We also will have all interior common spaces painted. So that is hallways, media center, gymnasium, auditorium, so on and so forth. We will have some work done in the main office to improve that space and a little ADA work near the tennis courts. So that's kind of central space. And I will mention we have significant ADA improvements coming to the auditorium this summer, and all that has been permitted and the work is scheduled to begin right after the students depart. So yes, we will have interior improvements. And again, I feel like Wootton needs them desperately. So I think we can always use more, but I'm going to take what we can get. Another thing that's going to happen even more immediate than that is we have turf replacement that is going to start the day after Memorial Day. So the stadium will close for a period of time and we will have improvement to that part of our field. So Jessica, I got it. Your question is a direct message. Can I share that one or do you want me to follow up with you directly?
No, that's fine. I hate to post it in because it looks like the PTA is asking questions.
Yes. Okay. Got it. It's the question about what happens when a vape detector is triggered. It sends a communication to security and to administrators, my understanding. And my understanding is like there can be a lot of them. So, but we get a notification. Brian, thank you for your comment about following up to see what we can do for bathrooms. We really need that. That would be great. I appreciate some of the thanks. I appreciate you as well. And the messaging. That's very nice to hear. Thank you. Anything, I don't believe I've missed a question at this point in time, but there were a number of them today. So if there is anything that you wanted me to speak to, if someone could elevate that again so I could take a look at it, but I believe I've gotten to most of the things that were directly sent to me. Well, that might bring us then to our conclusion for today. Thank you all very much for the thoughtful questions. And I always appreciate this discussion. And I really do enjoy communicating with you all. I'm glad we have these coffee chats. I did want to give a huge shout out. So this is my last coffee chat with Jessica, who has been with us for each of these to help facilitate. It's such a big help. And Jessica, thank you very much for your year of work of helping with the PTSA secretary. I really appreciate you. And Brian, I don't want to miss thanking you as well. I appreciate all of your help as PTSA president. We're very, very fortunate to have our PTSA leader do amazing work for this school. And if you have attended for your first time or you're a regular, I hope to see you back next year, unless you're a parent of a senior and like we're wrapping up. I appreciate the engagement. I think it's important. And I do hope that getting this information out there, while not everyone can attend, I hope it does find its way out to the Wootton community, because I know these thoughts are on our minds and we just really need to have this information. So I really do appreciate my time with all of you.